Hello, I'm going to show you how to get 120 to 150k XP per hour doing ABA contracts. Now you might be wondering what is an ABA contract, and I'm going to explain. So currently I am stood at Relica. I am looking at the Relica notice board. So Relica in this instance is destination A. Now if I open up the board, this contract tells me to deliver to Relica from Port Roberts, and the game is expecting me to travel with my boat from Relica to Port Roberts and then back to Relica. What we are going to be doing is we're going to take this contract and you would be teleporting to Port Roberts and starting your journey there. Now, I only have one of the contracts, so I want to fill my contracts up with more ABA contracts. At level 62, you can only do Relica. At level 65, you can do Miscellanea. And at level 76, I believe, you can do Lunar Isle. I'm going to go and check every single one of those, and I'll be back in just a second. We have arrived at Miscellanea, and my board is not being very generous right now, but it is giving at least something. So here we have another one from Port Roberts to Miscellanea, and I'm going to take that one. And then I'm going to go to Lunar Isle. And we have arrived at Lunar Isle. So let's look at the board here. We have this is one of the best contracts in the game, actually, because it gives you 10.5k XP just for this one contract alone. So we are definitely taking that. We're going to be going from Alderaan to Lunar Isle. And then we can take... That is it, actually. That's all we can take. Not really any other good contracts here, so I'll be leaving it at that. But now we begin our journey in Alderaan. And the reason why you do it like this is because you want to start from your furthest away contract. And the further a contract is, the more XP you get. So we'll start at Alderaan, we'll make our journey, and then we'll go from here to the Fortis Coliseum. This was just a leftover contract I had from stream. And then we're going to go from the Coliseum to Port Roberts. And at that point, we have all of our cargo. Now, I can hold 5 contracts, so I'm currently missing 1. I can fill 1 more slot. Now, I have 4 ABA contracts, and I want to get at least 1 more A to B contract, because any contract that's not filled is wasted XP. Now, I'm going to summon my boat to Alderaan. You can also just use this NPC there at most ports and recover your boat, but if you're using a big boat, that is a bit more expensive. Usually only costs 5k for the small one. Now, a couple of things that will help you is having a bunch of crewmates. The more crewmates you have, the more cargo they can pick up. If you're only at level 62, you can get Cabin Boy Jenkins and what is the other guy's name? Ex-Captain Saeed, I believe his name is. Yes, this guy. They can both hold 2 cargo each. If you are level 73, you can activate this, the Crystal Extractor. You do need to do the Shark Time at the Crystal... At the Crystal Barracuda trial, the Gwyneth Glide thing, whatever. And you also want a Wind Catcher. That one is the second reward from the Jubilee trial. Now, what that does is the Crystal Extractor gives you 600 passive XP every single minute. All you have to do is click Harvest on it, and that is it. You want to put it right next to your helm so that you don't have to get off from the sailing every time you want to harvest EXP. The Wind Catcher you can pretty much place wherever. It doesn't really matter where it is. All it does is just give you extra speed, which we will see in just a second, if we are lucky. There we go. That will give us some extra speed to speed up our journey. Now, these contracts are going to be different every single time you do them. That is why this XP kind of varies a bit. You could be getting contracts that would be giving you 200k XP an hour, but eventually you will be hitting bad contracts. At level 80, you should consistently be getting at least 3 to 4 ABA contracts though, and you can just fill the rest of your slots with regular A to B contracts. I'll show myself doing that in just a second, so don't worry. Now, one thing that's going to help you a lot is having these 2 plugins. You have the Sailing plugin and the Port Task plugin. The Port Task is what gives you the line on the map to follow. You don't have to follow them. Sometimes you may even forget something because of it. But I'd say that fairly useful. The Sailing plugin will show you if you're missing any cargo. Sometimes you might forget to pick up one cargo or something. The sailing plugin will show that on your boat to make sure that you don't make that mistake. So very useful, 10 out of 10, recommend. We have arrived at our first location, so we're going to pick up all the cargo, and then we're going to depot it, and then we will sail to our next destination to pick up cargo, which is Port Roberts. And then after Port Roberts, we are done, and we will make our journey towards Lunar Isle, Miscellanea, and Fremenic to depot all of it. So, if you remember from earlier, we only had 4 tasks. Now I have arrived at Port Roberts. I forgot to check at Colosseum, but I should be able to get one here. I want to fill this last slot with just a regular A to B task, so at least I get some extra XP and I'm not just wasting. I'll pick up the cargo from that, load it, and then we're good to go. Depending on how many stops you make, say you only have 2 ABA contracts, if you're also making 2 stops along the way or 3 stops along the way, it should be extremely easy to fill out all of your contracts. This isn't really that hard of a method once you get the hang of it. It might seem a little bit confusing at first. One thing that I do recommend is bringing at least some repair kits, because you will be sailing through a couple of aggro NPCs. Now, some of them you can just skip. You don't have to sail past every single one of them, but some of them are kind of unavoidable. So now I have arrived at Lunar Isle, and I will make my first deposit. I have 3 contracts here, so this should be a decent chunk of XP. And our XP drop for these 3 contracts that I had is gonna be 18k. Wow. And now before you leave, you want to go get yourself some new contracts. So I'll make sure that I'll get this contract again. Do we have any other ones available? No, we don't. That is the only one. This is still one of the best contracts in the game though, so I'm not complaining. Now we have arrived at our second port. This one's a bit wonky to park if you're using the big boat, so just keep that in mind. You want to park it quite far into the port. And I will deliver this cargo. That's 4.7k XP. And I'll look at my contracts. We have 1 good ABA contract. We have Port Roberts to Miscellanea. We take that one and we go. Now our last destination is Relica, and then we're going to reset the cycle, and we just do the same thing again. The contracts will always change. They seem to be based on a certain amount of time. I don't know what that time is, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but the contracts are constantly changing. And we make our last delivery, and we check the board. So we only have 2 ABA contracts right now. Is there any more for us? No, there is not. So I have kind of a bad rotation right now. I only have 3 ABA contracts, but I can fill the rest with just A to B contracts along the way. And now we restart the cycle, and that is pretty much it. One thing that I have found is that at a level 80, you will pretty much consistently get way over 100k XP with no issue whatsoever. At level 62 to 66, you will be absolutely smooth sailing. You are going to have the time of your life because you will be getting constant ABA contracts, and it's going to be great XP an hour, arguably better than the Jubbly Jive. I was getting 80k XP an hour up to 66. Pip was getting something among the lines of 90 to 95. Unfortunately, once you hit level 66, though, your contracts can start falling off, and it will no longer be good XP until you hit enough for Lunar Isle again. Now, if we look at the ports, once you hit level 66, you unlock Port Tyrus, and the more ports that you get in your rotation, unfortunately, that means that there's going to be more contracts to clutter up your notice board. But luckily, once you have all 3 of them, the Lunar Isle, the Relica, and the Miscellanea, it does seem like you have enough things to look at in order to get constant contracts all the time. So that is pretty much it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. But other than that, I wish you smooth sailing, and I hope it goes well. Bye-bye!